Let's be honest, the $160 gift with purchase for May the 4th is a really exciting idea because it brings not one, not two, but 3 LEGO Clone Cadet minifigures to the LEGO Star Wars universe. Now LEGO Star Wars set number 40765's end product is quite an interesting move by LEGO, and you could definitely get your playtime out of it. But what would happen if we pull all these minifigures out and repurpose them for other builds? Now it's time to see what 3 iconic scenes we can create with our LEGO Star Wars Clone Cadets and put this set to the ultimate test. Now the first build is going to be based on the very first time we see our Clone Cadets in Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Well, not that early on. But when Obi-Wan Kenobi arrives in Kamino to meet with Taun We and Lama Su to see the clone army being built for the very first time. First thing is first, we're going to be building out our LEGO Star Wars Diorama foundation. I really enjoy using this specific modular building tactic where you get a 4x4 plate and you clip it in using a 2x2 brick. So I think I'd like to use a 32x32 base using the same exact building technique for all of my builds. For the flooring, I decided to go with the white tile finish to give it that polished Kamino look. After the flooring has been installed, I needed to add in some benches that the Clone Cadets will be eating at. Now looking at the source material for this build, it brought me to this exact type of display. I really like how I was able to get pretty close to what I think it would look like in the Star Wars universe. And of course, what's table good for without the Clone Cadets bowl served with this 1x1 food tile. Now it's time to crack open our first box of Clone Cadets and have our clones take a seat and enjoy their meal while we work hard on the rest of the build. I want to start on the top section of this build where Taun We and Obi-Wan Kenobi are walking on the platform seeing the Clone Cadets eating. And to do this, I'm going to utilize a 12x24 stud walkway, which will allow me to achieve the best flooring pattern that I'm going for. Now for the walls, I want to make something that really gives off that Kamino design, and this is what I came up with. It uses a few different building techniques, but overall I really liked how it turned out. And as far as what characters we're going to be using, it'll be Obi-Wan Kenobi from the LEGO Star Wars set 75333. This has got to be the best representation of Obi-Wan Kenobi during this timeline. Next up, we got Taun We from the exact same set. By far, this minifigure has to be one of my favorite minifigs of all time, so it's nice to see we'll finally put it to use. Now, the other character that was with Obi-Wan and Taun We is Lama Su. And I'm sure many of you guys know, LEGO has officially made this minifigure recently, so this will work out perfectly. Now adding these 3 characters to the walkway is just what we needed, but what we need even more is to elevate this build, and to do that I'm going to use these pillar pieces and stack them too high in order to achieve a nice distance from our characters to the Clone Cadets. And to give it a bit more texture, I'm going to fill the gaps in with some masonry bricks. Now that we got our last build completed, I had to make some modifications to the base plate so we can start to finally install our builds. And after installing our creations, I added in our Clone Cadets and even included a blue milk vending machine from B3 Customs and added in a clone on break with some blue milk in hand just for fun. And here's how our first build turned out. Now with one of the 3 builds completed, it's time to grab another box of Clone Cadets to see what we're going to be building next with even more clones. Now the next build is going to bring us to the training facility of Kamino, and it's going to challenge me in a few different ways that I'm not entirely used to. The first challenge I needed to overcome was figuring out how I was going to create a flooring that would be best for this next build. I started off with the idea of getting a base plate and adding tiles just to match the idea of what we see on screen. After looking at it, I just really didn't like how it turned out. So it was time to scrap that idea, and then I came up with this idea using slope bricks and 2x2 tiles, and well, I came up with this pretty interesting concept. But in order to achieve the best look for this build, we'll be utilizing a 48x48 LEGO base plate for the foundation. Now that we got the idea of how we're going to build the ground, I needed something that was going to tell a story of this segment, and that is one of the big towers that house the droids while the clones are training. So I picked an area of this base plate to give us some room to still add a story to this build without entirely being directly in the middle. Next up, I decided to add in some flooring as well as some areas with a sloped top just like we see on screen. Now that we got our flooring situated, it's time to work on the tower that's going to be the primary meat of this build. I came up with this idea of using these modified panels to add height to this build, and I used some modified bricks to not only give me the appropriate colors, but also gave some depth for the tower. Well, I guess not these colors. These are the colors we want. Now that we have the tower structure made, it's time to top this thing off and make it look as close to the source material as possible. In LEGO, as most of you probably already know, it's quite difficult to make a proper octagon build, but I was able to do this with this specific piece. This allowed me to create the base for the top of the tower, and I even used some snot bricks and these slope tiles to give it that polished edge from what we kind of see on film. It was then time to create the small build we can see on top of the tower. I then grabbed the same pieces we used for the base of the tower, and I added in some reverse masonry bricks to give the walls a nice textured finish. And if you look closely at the photos, you can also see there are some green lights, which that's nothing that some green transparent tiles can't fix. For the top of this mini build, you can see a dome-like topper that houses this entire build together. Here's the best I could do in this situation. Now, after completing this tower and adding it to the foundation, there are still a few things missing. And besides the Clone Cadet minifigures, it's the barricades we see the clones training with at the training facility. I came up with a few different ideas, but this was by far my favorite, and I decided to create them in a few different sizes. It was then time to place some of those barricades down on this build and add in the final step, the second box of Clone Cadet minifigures to this build, and I equipped the Clone Cadets with some of my favorite blasters from Clone Army Customs, and even brought in some droids they make as well. And here's how this build turned out after adding in the minifigures. Overall, this second build was very challenging, but it was really fun getting the chance to try a few new building techniques. But it's now time to work on our third and final build for this video. And for the final build, let's grab 3 boxes of Clone Trooper Cadets for a total of 9 minifigures and get started with our building. This time we're going to head inside the Clone Cadet Barracks in Tapoca City on Kamino and create a true masterpiece. With that reference in mind, that means our first challenge is that we're going to need to create the clone sleeping pods that can be found inside their barracks. I came up with a few different designs, but after several hours of building, I finally got it. And for my second version, which actually opens up using a sliding rail technique inside the build alongside some Lego arches that allows the door to open up. And inside the build, it has a nice bed that the clones can lay on, and even has a comfortable pillow. Well, comfortable enough for a Lego minifigure. But on the back of every clone sleeping pod is a nice AC vent that they can get some fresh air in and out. And after some time, I created 9 of these sleeping builds, which in my opinion are quite accurate to the source material used. But building the clone pods is the easiest part. Figuring out how to stabilize all 9 sleeping pods which hang in the middle without any support is going to be the true challenge. But before we attempt to do that, let's grab another 48x48 base plate and try to figure out how to set up the walls for the supports on the outside. Personally, my favorite part about Kamino is the elegant architecture the Kaminoans use to build their facilities, and I wanted to show that in this build as best as possible. So I decided to grab these curved modified bricks to help shape my walls alongside some 1x10 Lego bricks to bring in that nice smoothed out finish. And as we get higher in the build, I want to utilize these 2x2x5 cylinder quarter pieces to give my build some height. I figured it might be best to add in our tiling on the base plate so we have a nice template on where things are going to be needed to be placed on our display. Now for the moment of truth. How to get 9 pods successfully held up without any visual support, and I think that's where Lego Technic comes into play. Technic really gives some strength and structure to specific Lego sets, and I feel like this will help tremendously when it comes to balancing out our Clone Cadet sleeping quarters from wall to wall. We just need to figure out how I'll be using Lego Technic to produce the best support to our current pods. So I came up with this idea of using these Lego Technic bricks with a pin, as well as these Technic bricks with holes to connect to each other within the builds. That means I also need to swap out some pieces from our current pods to make this happen. Now this allows them to be hidden from the public eye to give that illusion of a solid structure. But as you can see, just not all pods are connected to each other. There is a missing link, the ladders for the clones to climb into their beds. Using Lego bars, clips, and other helpful pieces, it allowed me to achieve a pretty accurate looking ladder in my opinion. It was then time to stack all of our pods and slide in our ladders to bring this entire build to life. Once it was all snapped together, I tiled off the top of this building to give it a nice polished look before we add in the final details. And as you can see in the photos, there are some containers and benches in the Clone Barracks, and I didn't want to leave those out of the build. After some building, I came up with these Lego container ideas. I really like them, and it really gives that Kamino-like finish. For the benches, it was a bit more simple. I reversed some masonry bricks, topped them with some black Lego tiles, and that just did the trick. Let's add in our Clone Cadet minifigs and show you the final result of this build. Now that is the video. Let me know how you guys liked all 3 of these builds, and let me know in the comment section below which of the 3 was your favorite. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.